Nigerians' unity is settled and not negotiable. We shall not allow irresponsible elements to start trouble, and when things get bad, they run away and settle others with the responsibility of bringing back order, if necessary, with their blood. Every Nigerian has the right to live and pursue his business anywhere in Nigeria without let or hindrance. I believe the very vast majority of Nigerians share this view. This is not to deny that there are legitimate concerns. Every group has a grievance, but the beauty and attraction of a federation is that it allows different groups to air their grievances and work out a mode of coexistence.
President's speech has expectedly been generating, and of course we continue to generate a healthy debate. Did it meet the expectations of Nigerians? Well, the days ahead will tell. But what is quite clear and unambiguous is that the president is back and rearing to go, determined to tackle political, social, and economic challenges facing the nation. He has already written to notify the National Assembly of his resumption of duties and his functions as president. Now, our focus today shall be on hate speech. The president has already given indications that government will take the battle to political mischief makers who have fueled ethnic and religious violence. Suffice it to say that the genesis of this violence is rooted in hate speech. The National Economic Council, led by the Vice President and comprising some key ministers and all state governors, drew the line on hate speech last Thursday. The Vice President described hate speech as a speech of terror, especially, of terrorism, thereby promising tough times for perpetrators of hate speech. Government, in fact, is contemplating special courts to deal with cases of hate speech and terrorism at all levels. We shall look at the issues beyond today and even its legal implications in subsequent editions of the program. But for today, we shall take a look at how hate speech emanated and how the country has lost so much to this very nefarious activity of some individuals. Now, I have joining me in the studio two gentlemen to tackle this issue. First, I have Mr. John Abuere. John Abuere is a former Director General of the National Youth Service Corps, NYC, and now he is of the Center for Child Care and Youth Development. Mr. Abuere, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Also joining us is Bashir Maidugu. Mr. Bashir Maidugu is an honorary special advisor on infrastructure to the executive governor of Borno State. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Yeah.
First, let me have your very quick take on the president's speech broadcast earlier today.
Very, very apt, very appropriate, and direct to the point. I was stimulated. I was elated. It shows really that the country has a future. And as you said, we have no reason to start talking about negotiation of the national unity. And I think really he made the point very clear that you are free to be anywhere, any place in this country. And this is one Nigeria that we all have labored to build over the years. I was quite impressed with the speech.
Mr. Bashir, do you think that such words will assuage the fears of those who are in different parts of the country who seem to have been threatened by the quit orders that have been issued across the country, whether in the south-south, in the north, or in the southeast, or in the southwest.
Very well. And the president, as my colleague here has said, is very generous, really, in his speech to all sides. And he's very clear that those who have grievances have the federation, you know, to talk out their grievances about. There is the National Assembly, you know, there are other avenues where they can air their, you know, grievances so that they can be heard. There is no room for any hate speech or any hateful conduct here in Nigeria, because this is actually detrimental to our being, you know, as a nation. We have to be one nation, undivided in anything.
Mr. Aguirre, his speech seemed to have taken central stage in the last couple of months. To the extent that the National Economic Council last Thursday at its retreat dwelled extensively on it. What, in the first place, would you consider to be hate speech?
Well, there's a standard definition of hate speech, and is seen as talks directed at a particular person or group of people because of certain attributes they have, such as maybe being a gay, coming from a particular country, all those sort of things. What I'm trying to say that hate speech is something directed at individuals and meant to defame him, meant to make him unhappy, meant to, in fact, it could actually lead to some destruction. So I think really that if we are, it's something that we ought have to be concerned with, because it doesn't breed friendship, it doesn't breed love, rather it breeds hatred, and hatred breeds hatred. And as I tell my friend, if a man comes and call you a bastard, do you embrace such person? Or you meet a woman and tell her, oh, you are a prostitute, will he give you a kiss? No. So hate speech, as directed at individuals, meant to cause no harm to them, is something that should be avoided. And in this country, we've seen the effect for a long time, dating back to the 40s, run through the 50s. You remember the first crisis we had in this country, where in Lagos, and in Lagos, after Chief Tony Naro had moved that famous notion, and the North asked for, a postponement or a shift in time. There was this booing
for independence.
Yes, and that was the first major move by people. We see it happening throughout. You know, when political parties were being formed, and there was that rivalry and the rest of them, leading to etc. We saw it again after the 1966 July coup. Part of the hate speech of that period actually snowballed into the civil war. And we saw it again even in 2014 when elections had to be shifted. So all I was know, and we are seeing it again, that people just suddenly sat down and started talking about this person is, cannot live in that place, or the other person is an animal. These are not language we should be expecting in the Nigeria of 2015. We've come a long way where people should be able to say, look, we are brothers, first and foremost. There may be some underlying factors we may be mentioning later on, because really for me, these are, when people talk, they are reflecting some inner things people are not seeing. They are merely symptoms. The hate speech are merely symptoms, but as it is condemnable and should be condemned. And I'm happy that the government is taking a very strong stand. And the head of state was quite clear on this, and his speech was reassuring to every person that time was past when we should learn to see ourselves, as Igbo, as Hausa, as Edo. We are foremost Nigerians. No, we are foremost Nigerians, and that is the way I see it.
Yeah, Mr. Bashir, that brings us to the point of these underlying factors. Because at a time, Nigerians seem to have accepted the reality that we are one people, we are one nation. And then at other times, there's this resurgence of sectionalism, religious differences and all of that. All of these leading to what many people have described as hate, the hate phenomenon. What do you think are the underlying factors?
Well, precisely, Nelson Mandela, said, and it's a global quote now, that nobody is born with hate ingrained in him. Hate is learned. In Nigeria, I think this is exactly the situation. In the 60s, as my colleague has said, there were agitation, regional agitations, tribal agitations, but there was never religious agitation in the 60s. And in the 70s, substantially we had military rule. And to me, whenever the military is in power, it seems, the agents of hate, are subdued. And this comes to, the situation that we should organize ourselves as God has already given us democracy. We should know that, justice and equity, must be accepted. Those who do not accept justice and equity are greedy. They want things their own way, and if they don't get it, they try to bring down the system at all costs. This is not acceptable. And in this case, the law shall take its course. As the Vice President has said recently, that there should be special courts, to handle hate speeches and the speeches, as terrorism. This has been my opinion, actually. Long, I have written this so many times in different fora, that hate speech is incitement. The difference between sedition and hate speech is very thin. And usually hate speech translates to sedition, and sedition translates to treason. So therefore, we must accept the fact that, those who are inciting hate among our people through speeches in the mosques, in the church, in other public fora, shall be dealt with like the terrorists. I don't have any objection to that, and I support this wholeheartedly.
If you say that hate speeches, or indeed conduct of that nature, seems subdued under military dispensation, can we then conclude that a lot of this is generated by politics? Yeah,
it's because of our constitution, which guarantees freedom of speech. And some people actually cross the red line, as the president has said, to incite, secession, to incite hatred against one another. For instance, the quit notice given by the Arewa youth, it was promptly doused by two prominent governors of the North. The governor of Borno State, Kashim Shettima, and that of Kaduna State clearly came out to say that those people who incited this, who gave quit notice, should be arrested and actually tried, because this is actually incitement. If anything happens on October 1, these leaders should be arrested because they incited people to actually break the law. So therefore, as far as I'm concerned, our leaders are trying, and we followers should also try to abide.
The president says hate speeches and acts that are in that direction are the handiwork of mischief makers, mischievous politicians.
Well, I agree with Mr. President that there is considerable element of politics and political motivations in some of the hate speeches. But we are trying to find a solution to a problem, and it's necessary that we try to take it beyond politics. Like it or not, in any society where there has been no proper social, political, and even economic education, where the socialization process is poor, where there has not been any deliberate effort to generate citizen participation in the development process, where governance has been seen to be poor, and of course, where also there are visible signs of injustice, unfair play, and inequitable distribution of resources, there are bound to be elements of hate speeches that are not necessarily motivated by politics. But the situation in Nigeria seems to be very complex in the sense that we have had a long history of intertribal hatred, you know, among ourselves. You know, we have had a situation where even the elite kept telling you that the problem of this country is because of its cultural diversity, whereas it is actually as a result of their own ineptitude, you know, in ruling these countries. And we try, if you keep telling somebody that he is from, because, you know, things are not working well because Mr. A is there, is from the other side, you know, a time will come, you start having it subconsciously as a fact, whereas that is not the truth. So we really need to sit down to ask, what are we teaching our children? What are we teaching the youth? Is it to love or to hate? Is it to have faith in the country or otherwise? My own take is this: hate speeches reflect a kind of uncaring attitude, unfeeling attitude to national unity, or to the question of national unity and development of this country. And we may be able to tackle it. Yes, the laws are there. The laws are already there. Are they being implemented? The laws are already there. So I really think that much as we say there is politics in it, we should also admit that there are other factors that make hate speech apparently inevitable. But with kind of effective socialization of the individual, we should be able to know where your own speech or freedom of speech translates into hatred, and where my own should stand. So all this cannot be done unless there is a systemic education of the public, bordering on character education, bordering on moral education, bordering even on the political education, to let people know that it is not the problem of this country, is not that Mr. A is from the East, is from the West, but that there is a collective elite failure in leadership, and we should address that problem.
I see that, Mr. Bashir, you are eager to throw in a word, but before you do that, let me just quickly ask this question. There are those who have said, who have fingered the socio-economic situation in the country as partly responsible for the upsurge in hate speeches. But then you take that and you put it side by side with what is also happening in a country like the United States, where a lot of hate speeches and agitations are also brewing, where it seems that the economic situation is not one of the reasons that would generate that kind of thing. When you put this side by side,
yes,
those who say it is the economic situation, the social situation that is leading to this upsurge in Nigeria.
To tell you sincerely, you see, our leaders, both in the churches and in the mosques, and our tribal leaders, you know, our town union leaders, village heads, you know, we have to, you know, develop a patriotic spirit for Nigeria. Everything, you know, about Nigeria should be promoted, you know, among the people. Let the people love the country. About the United States, you don't blame those, you know, who are coming out boldly to spread white supremacism because of the attitude of their president. In any case, we are not talking about the United States here. With respect to Nigeria, I will urge the federal and state governments and the local governments to come up with a national, you know, program aimed at promoting patriotism within Nigerians, so that we should learn to love our country. We should learn that we don't have any other place to live outside Nigeria. Anywhere we go, we are strangers or refugees. May God forbid. So that should be actually promoted, spread, and this it should be a movement. I can remember in the 80s, in 1984, when the president was a military ruler, he launched war against indiscipline, and then within this war against indiscipline, there is a patriotic movement to buy Nigeria, to do everything Nigeria, to fly Nigerian flags on your cars, in your houses, in your offices. This should be promoted. We have to love this country. We don't have anywhere to go. Yes, you are a Yoruba man. Yes, you are a Hausa man. Yes, you are a Muslim. Yes, you are a Christian. But this is where you are. This is where your ancestors emanate. You have to love, you have to understand that, you have to work towards that, you have to promote that. Let your children, your grandchildren understand that only Nigeria is your country. And we should work towards uplifting this country and developing our society.
Now, how easy will it be, Mr. Aburi, for our elites, for our elder generation to unlearn some of these habits that we are talking about? It might be easier to inculcate new standards, new values in the younger generation. But how easy will it be for them to unlearn what they have imbibed over such a long period?
How did they acquire it in the first instance? There was a time in this country where people gathered together to struggle for independence, irrespective of where they came from. They just were having one objective. But what happened? In 1947 or about 1946, before that one we have had the NCNC, and that was the national party we were all dancing around. And something happened. The Richards Constitution came up, and it divided the country into three, and party politics based on ethnicity and regionalism came up. It is when we want to change people, the reward system, what I'm trying to say, is very, very important. Why is it that tribalism, regionalism is still so entrenched? The reason is that it is the easiest way people get actualized. You are looking for something, it's only when your brother is there. That mentality is there, and the only people that could actually change it are the elites, the ruling elites, who will make sure that things are done on merit and not on basis of nepotism and the rest of them. But let us come back to a little listen. There is no time a man will not change, because a man is a learning animal. The moment we begin to see these signals, like the president has made a statement today, that look, if you don't take time, the law will descend on you. And when we begin to see the law actually descending, people will take a cue. I've always argued that this country is not as difficult to manage as we are making it look. One key element is consequence management. If you do wrong, punish you. Don't overlook it because I am Dr. Abere and you are. No. Punish the person, and if you do right, give him. So once the consequence management right, we'll find that things will be moving on. Once the reward system, because when political power began to reward regionalism instead of nationalism, patriotism went what? Went down. That's the point he was making. Went down. No person talk about patriotism. No person talk about Nigeria. All you are interested is your pocket. And the emphasis on regionalism, the emphasis on this speech reason, is not actually for the people they are representing. It's for their own individual personal interest. And this is very, very important. And I think that is why when we talk about, the Vice President was correct to say, marginalization, okay, fine. People talk about marginalization. But you also know that most of the people who talk about marginalization are those who think they are not enjoying it for the now, for the present moment. But what I want to say that behind, there may be some really genuine cases of marginalization. But in most cases, when people make reference to this, they are only telling you that I'm around, but you are not taking me along. Do you know that I was shocked recently when somebody from the north said he's being marginalized? I said, what? If you say you are being marginalized, what will somebody from southeast say? So these are the issues that we play with words because it's an elite game. No politics, the rule, governance is an elite game, but with good governance and implementation of effective consequence management, people will,
okay. Yes,
change.
Mr. Bashir, on a final note, when this administration came to power and began the anti-corruption crusade, it was interpreted to me that it was directed at political opposition. Now, his speech is now the other day. Now, he will now establish these special courts, and people are then now dragged to these courts for whatever offenses they commit, will it not be the same story? Will it not be interpreted to me that, oh, you are trying to hunt your political opponents because you want them out of the way?
So be it. Because, you see, you cannot plot the law, incite people to hate one another, to incite people to do things that they ordinarily don't think about doing, simply because you have a higher status in society. As a pastor, as an imam, or as a politician, you end up causing trouble in the society. If the law catches up with you, so be it. Let the person be in any political party. It doesn't mean, but the evidence will be what will convince, what will convict it. I mean, the person. So therefore, if he complains or others complain that there is marginalization, so be it. Because without evidence, he cannot be convicted. We have a due process in place. And let me tell you this. The president has drawn the line. And there are indications now that there is possibility that special courts will be set up to try all these people who are causing trouble in this society. And for anybody to go and do it again, either in the social media or in the actual media, he will find himself to blame. He shouldn't blame anybody because this is something that he knows. And if he goes ahead and does it, fine. That's the situation.
Do we need any special legislation other than existing ones to deal with this?
For me, I don't think so, because there are so many laws. It's just like the war against corruption. Why is it not working? It's not because there are no laws. The truth of the matter is that people are not willing to obey laws, and the state institutions are weak to actually, drive the war against corruption home. But let me quickly say something that why I don't mind if you come up with a special court. We should, however, be mindful of the need to respect people's right to freedom, and that calls for diligent work be done before you take somebody to the court. Otherwise, it could soon be misinterpreted as breaching people's right.
Fundamental rights.
Fundamental right. But having said that one, for Christ's sake, we need to address our mind, because this is a mind issue. This is a mind issue. Hate speech is a mind issue, that person is bad or that person is doing wrong. And we need to really enlighten ourselves that it is not the best way to build a nation. Hate speech is not the best way to build a nation. Laziness is not the best way to build a nation. Injustice is not the best way also to build a nation. There must be a proper governance structure that is seen to be good, and every person will also come in. But hate speech, we must check it at all costs, because it is, I really don't know it. It doesn't allow for teamwork. It doesn't allow love to flow. It doesn't allow free movement of goods and services. It doesn't even allow free movement of labor, because you don't know where you will go. Another person will just throw something at you, not because you offended that person, but because he thinks you come from a particular place, or you belong to a particular, or you carry out a particular, behave in a particular way. I could decide to be here, I could decide to be in Maiduguri, and no person, I should have that freedom that no person is going to target me because of where I'm coming from. And that is, I think, what we got from the president's speech today.
Sorry, in addition to what my colleague here has said, we have to understand that those who are inciting hatred among Nigerians, either religious leaders or political leaders, are actually out to benefit from what they are, from the atrocities. At the end, politically, they want to divide us so that they can be our leaders. The same way, religiously. So therefore, we have to understand, we have to be smart enough to understand the motive of some of them. Mostly, they don't have anything tangible. They don't have any program, nothing other than for them to actually actualize their ambitions. So we have to understand that they want something, And for the easiest way for them to get it is to actually, damage our fault lines for their benefit. So therefore, we have to understand, we have to be smart. Those who are causing hatred, those who are preaching, that we should hate one another one way or the other, shall be dealt with by the law.
All right, it is the Monday edition of People, Politics, and Power. And my guests in the studio are Dr. John Abuere, who is former Director General of the National Youth Service Corps and now of the Center for Children and Youth Development, and Bashir Madugu. Bashir Madugu is an honorary special advisor on infrastructure to the governor of Borno State. We'll be back in a moment. I'll be talking a lot more about hate speeches and the way forward.
The Nigeria of our dream, the Nigeria we need, is the united, indissoluble, and cohesive Nigeria which guarantees equity, fairness, justice, and prosperity for its citizens. That is our focus on people, politics, and power. It is fresh, insightful, impactful. It's a must-watch. People, Politics, and Power on AIT. Join us to build bridges of unity.
Welcome back. It's People, Politics, and Power, the Monday edition. And we are looking at the whole phenomenon of hate speeches. And of course, the president's broadcast this Monday addressed a number of issues, including, of course, Nigeria's continued unity, which he says is non-negotiable. It is not up for any debate or negotiation. And those who are spreading hate and falsehood around are mischief makers. And they are, of course, as it were, wasting their time, because Nigeria is not about to go anywhere. Well, Barrister Bashir Madugu is here, and Dr. John Abuere. Well, gentlemen, now, you have talked about patriotism, the need to imbibe the patriotic spirit. Beyond patriotism, what else do we need to begin to advocate, to begin to do to get back on our feet, to get back together as one united, indivisible nation? Now, if you, and I'm sure that you gentlemen and many other Nigerians have had opportunities of going outside of Nigeria, mixing with other people, other races, people, other citizens, and all of that. When you see a Nigerian outside of Nigeria, the Nigerian spirit blooms. But when we come back home, we begin to hit at each other. We send Nigerian soldiers, policemen outside of this country for peacekeeping and for whatever international duties they excel. And then we get back here and we begin to hit at, on each other. What is the problem?
Well, we have to build, and maybe we have to actually improve on our Nigerianness. What I mean by Nigerianness is, as you have said, the patriotism, which actually is somehow ingrained in us during sports, shall be amplified, during other things. Yes, we're a very large country, by any standard. We have a large population, but we're not bigger than India, for instance. India is a multicultural, multi-religious society. It's even multi-tribal society. But they are all trying to build a nation to excel globally. India now is a member of BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It should be BRICS. It should include Nigeria. We should all work toward that. That is to say, each and every one of us, government should provide good education for all the citizens. Government should provide good health facilities. Government should provide infrastructure. Fortunately, we have a new Director General at the ICRC now, And I believe he is up to the task. ICRC is the Infrastructure Concessions Regulatory Commission, and he's a good person. He's up to the task. And government should provide, the necessary basic things so that Nigerians, everybody should work towards the progress of this country, from the local government up to the federal level. We should all work towards progress of Nigeria. We should think about Nigeria. We should work for Nigeria. We should know that Nigeria should stand out globally. We should belong to the first 10 economies of the world. We have what it takes. Our population is very youthful. We are a large market. It is the dream of every serious company around the world to come into Nigeria. But we should lay the necessary infrastructure, conduct ourselves very well, love our country, so that we can attract them. And believe you me, in the next 10, 15 years, Nigeria will stand out as one of the top 10 economies in the world.
Well, I agree with what is said. I think, I wasn't a former director general. I was the former director of the National Youth Service Corps.
Oh, okay. We apologize for that.
Yes. I think really that Nigeria has bright chance, in fact, the brightest chance to be united if we do what other people are doing. All nations that are developed today, that are united, and I'm going to zero on Singapore, did very simple things. One, there is a high level of patriotism and nationalism. This is deliberately promoted. Two, there is good governance, where the emphasis is on justice and fair play. The rest can now follow. But in a country like Nigeria, where do I say we have greater hope? We have a very huge youthful population. Over 60% of Nigerians are young people. And these young people, from my experience in the National Youth Service, are very patriotic in their own way. They are ready to go to anywhere. Unfortunately, the wherewithal for them to do what should be done is not there. Those in the National Youth Service Corps are not being accepted even by employers. And we continue to use the old ways of posting. We can post somebody to a village. If there is a house, all we want is that person to know what obtains there, have first-hand knowledge, and come back. And that one will stick here. So what I'm trying to say is that if we invest properly on this segment of the Nigeria population, the youth, that is critical, because that is where the real workforce comes from. You develop them positively right from the beginning, positively. You empower them positively, because there are two types of development and empowerment. You can empower people to be negative, and that is why you see some of people going to terrorist way. And you can also empower them to do something useful, and that is what we see in the National Youth Service Corps. So if more money is voted for NYSC, for example, and more people, more youths, more youths are taken away from the disorganized groups and give them some training, you will find that patriotism will begin to percolate into people. National unity is not cheap. You have to invest in it. You have to train people to be nationalistic, to be patriotic. And this has been not neglected for a long time. Yes, we can say the NYC is doing it.
Yes, but have we invested enough in the NYC?
No, that's what I'm saying.
But because this is one organization that was set up to achieve what you are describing.
We have not
Actually,
invested
in
enough
recent times,
at all. We have not invested enough in that scheme, and that scheme holds the potential. A scheme that would have presence of young people in all the local government. We need to do much more than what we are doing for that scheme, and even actually to empower the entire youth. For example, do you know that if each local government were having, let's say, a stadium to practice football or do any other game, do you know the empowerment it will become? Do you know that they will be eager to be identified as Nigerians? So what I'm trying to really say is this: Nigeria can be made great, and two things I think is required. One, the elite must change their mood. They should become much more development-oriented and unity-conscious. 2, there has to be a culture of good governance be established right now. 3,
at every level,
at
from
every level,
local to state, and then to the federal government.
All, yes, not only federal government. Then the third point I will emphasize that we should give accord priority to youth development in this country, and here emphasis should be on fair play and justice. If you check all nations, whether in America or Japan or Singapore, even Dubai here, when that vision is there and you get people to carry it down, people will naturally become patriotic, because patriotism began to sink in 1947 with the introduction of the Richard Constitution in this country. That made people to start realizing that unless you become regional, you become tribalistic, you will not be able to win the state the regional leadership. That is where we began to lose everything in this country. Thank you.
On the other hand, our public image across the world, our international image, must be improved. And a situation where hundreds of Nigerians, if not thousands of Nigerians, are facing, various sentences, for drug-related or other crimes, does not, encourage Nigerians in the diaspora to even identify with Nigeria. So we should be able to actually help ourselves to address certain issues, some of these issues, so that we can be able to, call Nigeria a home everywhere in the world. And our youth, as he has said, not only that there should be enabling environment for them, to say they're Nigerians. This Nigerianness should start right from primary school, where civic education will be taught, and information around the world. Our domestic, ecotourism should be encouraged. For instance, if civil servants get holidays, instead of them going to Dubai or London or America, for instance, you can go to Akwa Ibom, and know the people there, have, some holidays, 2-3 weeks, or Calabar, or some people from Calabar or Akwa Ibom or Lagos should come down to Sokoto or Kano or Adamawa or Maiduguri. You understand what I mean? Spend some time and know about the people. That interaction. We have very nice, until the Boko Haram, we have a very nice Sambisa Game Reserve. There is Yankari Game Reserve, and so many other, very nice places. We should be able to know ourselves as a people, and we should be proud that Nigeria has everything others have. We have even more, because we don't have mudslide, we don't have earthquake, we don't have, natural disasters. You understand what I mean? We should love this country.
All right, Dr. Abuere, very quickly, drawing the line between free speech and hate speech. Because some would argue, and they have been arguing, the Constitution guarantees freedom of speech. But there must be a distinction between what free speech guarantees and when it crosses the borderline into hate speech.
Well, the truth of the matter is that we cannot run away that what is bad is bad. You know when something is bad. When we know when a speech is bad, that is going to hurt another person. For example, somebody went to was a record, and you listen to it all throughout. You know what is that? You know that is not good now. So much as I have said, really, we need to respect the individual right to freedom of speech. I mean, having said that one, we know when somebody said you are stupid, or that race is stupid, and when somebody says, "Oh, I love you," or "I don't love you," there shouldn't be said. All we should be careful is that the people doing this should not use it as a kind of political tool to hurt the others. But quickly, let me say, really, that we need to enforce our laws, because I think you are rounding up, and run an inclusive governance, and that is where I kept stressing the importance of good governance. And of course, families schools, institutions must learn to preach love, must learn to behave or to practice what Jesus Christ told us. Love thy neighbor as thyself. If that can be done, you will see that no more hate speeches here and there. If we take it as a culture, it will come to pass.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We spent the last 55 minutes or thereabouts talking about the phenomenon of hate speeches, and of course, the president's broadcast earlier this Monday, in which he touched on various issues, including, of course, Nigeria's unity and the whole phenomenon of hate speeches. My guests have been Dr. John Imobio Abuere, who is a former director of the National Youth Service Corps and now of the Center for Children, Child Care and Youth Development. Thank you so much for joining us. And Barrister Bashir Medugu, who is an honorary special advisor on infrastructure to the governor of Borno State. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
All right, that's our program for this Monday. Join us again on Tuesday when we bring you a fresh edition of People, Politics, and Power. My name is Imoni Amarere. Do have a wonderful time for the rest of today. Bye for now.